Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Hi, this is Rachel Fisher.
And this is Desi Jenikin.
And we host the Hollywood Crime Scene podcast. We're really excited to tell you about the best Christmas ever on AMC+, where every day feels like Christmas morning.
It's the holiday season, and that means it's time to see old friends like Buddy the Elf, Heat Miser, and Clark Griswold. Plus, you get a stocking stuffed with highly acclaimed AMC series like The Walking Dead and Mad Men, new series like Gangs of London and The Walking Dead World Beyond. They're all here on AMC+.
So celebrate the best Christmas ever, anytime, anywhere. AMC Plus is the gift that keeps on giving all year long. Sign up today at amcplus.com. AMC Plus, only the good stuff.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt, als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the German football podcast from the Football Grad Network. I'm your host, Bryce Dunn. We've got another exciting, action-packed podcast for you this week. We're going to be discussing Axel Witsel finally over the line with the Borussia Dortmund. That seemed to go on for ages, didn't it? But then we move on to RB Leipzig, talking about whether their squad is, in fact, good enough to push on this year. It's looking a bit threadbare, isn't it, according to some. Then we move on to Bayern. They've sold Vidal to Barcelona. What are the consequences there? Another selling club, it will be Mainz. We're going to talk about them and their transfer business this season, and then move down the leagues. As we've seen, Zwei Bundesliga return this weekend. We'll discuss how Hamburg and Cologne got on. And then, of course, we'll talk about 1860 and Liga. Well, joining me this week, as always, we've got Manu Veth. Manu, how have you been?
Yeah, pretty good. I'm really happy that Witsel story is finally done. I'm not gonna lie, I had an article ready and waiting just to wait for the final details for a few days now. So I'm happy that's finally done and we can finally talk about it. So I'm excited about that. But other than that, it's been a nice week. It's a long weekend over here in Canada, so nice and relaxing.
Oh, lovely. That's good to hear. Good. It's been lovely over in the UK as well. The weather has returned with scorching heat, which is nice. And I think we've just got to enjoy it while it lasts. Chris Williams is also here. Chris, are you enjoying this fantastic weather that we're receiving?
I'm going to say no now, Bryce. It's too hot.
Scrooge.
In the evening, it's too hot. I don't mind it in the day. But as we record this, it's 5 to 9. It must be about, I'm going to say 40 degrees. Don't even know what that is in Fahrenheit for our overseas listeners. It's going to make up a random figure, 120. That's how hot it feels. And at nighttime should be cool. Daytime red hot. So I'm not a fan at the minute, Bryce. And do you know why British people don't like the weather? Because it changes. Tomorrow is supposed to be 15 degrees cooler. How's my body meant to react to that when it's 15 degrees cooler one day? I want it to be constant. If it's constantly hot, I'm all right. Anyway, that's enough wedding. That's because it's my anniversary today, Bryce, as well. That's enough weather ranting.
That is definitely enough weather from Chris Williams. I think, well, let's talk about the news, the football news. And yeah, Chris, we'll stick with you. This Axel Witsel deal that Manu mentioned, it seemed to be... Well, it seems to be one of the longest transfers I remember in a while. We've discussed for weeks now about this happening, but a good move for Dortmund going into the season now, a bit of bite in midfield.
Yes, I think Ademola Lookman overtakes this transfer now as, is it happening? When's it going to be released? So yeah, it was Axel Witsel, the long, when's it happening? Is it happening? That's now been taken over by Leipzig, who we're going to speak about in a bit. Yes, I think it's good. My only fear for Borussia Dortmund is Julian Weigl about to make his way to Manchester City? That's my only concern now. Yeah, that's the main one for Dortmund. Is Weigl going to go? But I think they've this is an excellent player. I tweeted out earlier, Keith Costigan was straight onto it, who's obviously one of the Fox guys, main commentators over in the States. So it's a fantastic sign-in for Borussia Dortmund. It's going to be a good one. Hopefully, we should get some sort of official announcement probably the day this podcast comes out. I'd expect it would be tomorrow. Manu, would you Monday?
Yeah.
So yeah, and whilst I'll be a little concerned if Julian Weigl does go, Axel Witsel making his way to Dortmund doesn't necessarily have to mean that one of them has go. They can. Weigl's very good, defensively, but I think Witsel can play a little bit further forward, so they won't be in competition. They'll just be able to complement each other. But my main concern that they brought him in now is that something else might be on the way out, and I think the loss of Weigl will be quite bad for Dortmund, as the arrival of Witsel is quite good. I'd hate for it to be overshadowed.
Yeah, I heard that Weigl is definitely going to stay.
That's good.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. I mean, a lot of things can happen, right? The transfer window in England closes in 4 days, but the main threat on this one is Paris Saint-Germain with Thomas Tuchel. He really wants to bring him in. But I don't know if PSG have the sort of money. Remember, we're going to talk about Boateng in a moment, but that deal fell through because PSG simply they have money. I mean, they have tons of money, but they don't have enough money to, in terms of viability. Yeah, exactly. Upfront payment because of financial fair play. So they don't have the cash lying around to complete a deal like that. So I think that Dortmund don't really have to worry about them. City, I know Guardiola's a big fan, right? So I guess we have to, 4 days, English teams like to get things done over the line at the last minute. So I expect there will be a lot of transfer flurries around August 9th. But, from what I hear, Dortmund want to build a new team around Weigl. That's what I've heard from the Lucien Favre camp. So I guess they will try to hang on to him. I'd be really worried at the moment if I was Nuri Sahin and Sebastian Rode, because Witsel is a definite upgrade on them, isn't he, Chris?
Yeah, most definitely. And that's why I think they can keep both of them, Weigl and obviously Witsel, they can keep because they just signed, but they can utilise both of them in the same position as they want. They can complement each other in that midfield area, with Weigl being slightly more defensive and Witsel looking to maybe wholly attack up a little quicker and the transitions. So I think they can work together. But Rode and Nuri Sahin is, I think it would be unfair to say he's been on his way out for a couple of seasons. Obviously, he was not a wanted man by Thomas Tuchel. He managed to play occasionally to a high standard last season. I'm going to say on the occasion, though. It feels like he's been there for absolute years, doesn't it? And we haven't seen the best of him for a couple of seasons now. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that Nuri Sahin, he always has struggled with fitness for some time and never really showed the sort of form that he showed back in 2010, 2011. Remember before he went to Real Madrid and then Liverpool.
I think he's never looked the same player. Well, obviously, he didn't make it in Madrid, so he was loaned to Liverpool. Liverpool got rid of him pretty quick, so he didn't make it there. He's obviously had quite a lot to put up with. Then, obviously, he was very, very upset and distressed by the events that went on against Monaco the other season. So, he's not had a good time recently.
Yeah. And Witsel I'm really excited about the signing. Look, I know there's a lot of people that say, well, he's only played in Portugal, Russia, and China. But I followed his career quite closely because right around the time when he went to China, to Russia, that was back, seems like a long time ago, really isn't that long, back in 2012, right? It's only 6 years ago. He was one of those first mega transfers, a 40 million plus signing, euro signing. And I know nowadays you say, well, that's not a lot of money. Back then it was, especially when you went to Russia, and Zenit signed both Witsel and Hulk that season. And it was sort of two transfers that, remember all the hype that we have currently about China? Back then it was all about Russia and Russian football investing tons of money, and Witsel and Hulk were basically financed by Gazprom, right? And their arrival wasn't really greeted by the locals either. There was a lot of problems with the fans, the famous statement that they made, and I've covered this all in a Fußballstadt.com article, which is up now. The fans reacted very negatively to Witsel arriving because they felt that they wanted to work with local players instead. It was very heavily borderline racism and probably crossed the line into racism when Witsel first signed. But in this difficult environment, and people say Russia is not a top league. It's not, but it's a very difficult league to compete because of the weather, the conditions, the distances that you have to travel, further distances than in North America even. And he excelled in that league, and he actually also got Zenit to be a competitive team in the Champions League. And since he's left Zenit, they haven't been really the same in the Champions League either. So yes, he made the move over there, and it was difficult for him to succeed there. And then of course he went to China. China is of course a developing country. It's developing in league-wise, but it's not a European competitive league. At the same time, he was excellent at the World Cup, wasn't he, Chris?
Yeah, he was part of that very good Belgian side that almost went the whole way, didn't they? And came third eventually. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if he needs any time to settle. You would think not, because obviously he's Belgian, he's from Central Europe, he's going to a Central European country. He should be able to get back into the swing of things, as in European football, pretty quickly, because as you say, he's just been to the World Cup and he had a very good World Cup. So I would normally say you probably need a little bit of adjustment if you're coming from such a far away league as the Chinese Super League back into European football. But I think just having the World Cup might have played into a strength of his, and he will, in essence, come straight off the back of that holiday from the World Cup and then go straight into training with Borussia Dortmund. So yeah, had he not gone to the World Cup, I may have been a little bit worried if he could recapture his form quickly, because I think Dortmund need players now who can play football. They're no longer a team who can afford to sign potential stars to develop, because obviously they're thirsty to get back as Bayern's main challenger. So yeah, Axel Witsel certainly ticks all them boxes to come in and hit the ground running straight away. But I think the first thing we'll notice is, when he's officially announced, how quickly he's back in training, and is he available for the first game against Leipzig at home?
Yeah.
Well, guys, let's talk a little bit about whether this transfer is going to be enough, along with the other work as well that Dortmund have done over the summer, to possibly mount a challenge. I mean, do you think that they're going to return, to the team that they were a few years ago under the likes of Klopp, and maybe when Tuchel first took over? Are they going to be able to challenge Bayern Munich? Because that's what we all want to see, right? Well, yeah, we do. You can see the players that they've brought in. You can't really complain about the quality if you look at the main signings they've done. So obviously Hitz, he's free, but he looks like he's okay. He can play the farther away ball at his feet, etc. Might take a little bit of getting used to. Marius Wolf is an excellent player who we all eulogised about last season. I was lucky enough to see him 3 times in total last season. Thought he was excellent. Thomas Delaney's came in from Werder Bremen. Diallo's coming from Mainz. So yeah, can they challenge Bayern? I would normally say no. I think Bayern are still a little bit ahead, but I've just got this feeling throughout pre-season that there's a few problems at Bayern, whether it's the management trio spouting comments on the DFB, whether it's the players like Hummels having little snidey goes at the new manager Kovac on Twitter about who he thinks is a good defender and who isn't a good defender. I just get the feeling that not all is right at Bayern, and if there's a side who look together and ready, I think they can take that challenge to Bayern. And I saw a little clip of Schalke in training the other day, and they look like a team who've gelled and look like a team who are very happy to be playing together. So I would expect them to be up there, and I would also expect Dortmund to be up there and really taking the challenge to Bayern, because after 6 years of winning the league, I do get a genuine feeling, we'll see how true it is in May, that there's some cracks in that club at the moment.
Yeah, and I think with Dortmund, though, the one thing, and they're quite honest about, they say that the damage done over the last couple seasons, I guess, they will to get back into that mentality that they had under Klopp and really give Favre the team that he needs to play his football. Watzke said they probably need two more transfer windows to really completely give him his team. So I think that's actually a positive statement, because it shows that they have the patience to work with Favre long term, right? And say, look, we understand that in order to make this truly Favre's team, there's some work required. The one position I think we're both in agreement with that, right? Philip is a great striker. I think he can produce a lot of goals. He's recently said he thinks he can score between 15 and 20 goals a season. And that would be a really good rate. Especially if you throw in a whole bunch of goals for Marco Reus, if he stays healthy, and all the other attacking players that they have. But I do think that they need another striker. Not necessarily a Batshuayi kind of type striker. I think they need a playing kind of striker, like Favre had at Nice, where he was quite successful, and of course at Gladbach. I think they need another player like that.
I think if we look at who they've got shut of as well, I think we can say that normally when Dortmund sell players, you would think, oh, how's that going to destabilise the side? Someone's come in and taken one or two or even three of the best players. If you look at who's gone this season, officially, Yarmolenko's gone. He flattered to deceive last season. I think he had one good game. That was the game at Wembley. Socrates has gone. I think his time was pretty much done at Dortmund. Mikel Merino's eventually gone under the loan deal, so he's formally off the books. Castro, Schürrle, he's gone to Fulham. I don't think we'll see him in a Dortmund shirt ever again. And the others that have stepped down into lower place teams. Although Durham's gone to Huddersfield, I will put Huddersfield in a lower bracket of English clubs. Like Paslat's gone to Norwich on a loan. So I think for the first time in a long time, the departures don't outweigh the arrivals, and especially when we get confirmation, if it's an official confirmation from the club, and we can say, yeah, he's an official transfer, their arrivals will certainly outweigh the departures for the first time in a long while.
Especially when another striker comes in, right? That'd be sort of the cherry on top.
Yeah, it would. But I think like you said the other day or the other week, Manu, they may be able to cherry pick someone once the window closes in England. Yeah. If they've got their eye on anybody, that's the time to do it. And you would hope that they'll be able to persuade whichever club it is to sell a striker.
And especially the way Favre plays, they wouldn't necessarily need to have someone who would gel right away, right? Because I feel that they almost don't want that one guy that scores 30 goals. It feels almost that they want to have more flexibility up front, which is, makes sense in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it does. I think the days for Borussia Dortmund relying on Aubameyang to net 30, 31, 28 goals a season, I think they know that now that's got to be spread through. So can Philip get 15? Can Royce get 12? Can some of the midfielders chip in with more goals? Can some of the wide players do it? That's what Schürrle was brought in for. Can he add to that goal scoring ability? No, he couldn't, so he's been shipped out. Dortmund are trying to find different avenues from goals rather than just pinning all your hopes on one man, because either he leaves, like Aubameyang did, or he gets injured, like Batshuayi did right at the end of the season.
And guys, we talk about them possibly needing a striker. Is there any rumblings as to who may come in, or any rumors going on, or do you guys know anything that we don't?
There's tons of rumors.
Too many.
So I think they probably have a list of names, but I don't think there's anything out there where you say, okay, this is going to be the one that makes sense. Today there was a rumor about a Brazilian kid that no one ever's heard of that's possibly going to Dortmund. And there's Gamero, the guy from Atletico Madrid, was apparently joining them. Every day there's a new rumor. So I think we can leave it at that. This might be something where they're going to completely surprise us.
Yeah, exciting times, eh? Well, let's move on now. We'll talk a little bit about RB Leipzig, a side that are possibly not doing enough in the transfer window. Ralf Rangnick has come out today, hasn't he, Manu, and criticised the squad for being too threadbare. Do you agree? Do you think that they haven't invested enough? That they haven't spent a lot, have they?
Yeah, but at the same time, they've made some signings and strengthened the squad. I think this one in particular was criticism towards Dayot Upamecano and Nori Mokile. Nori Mokile, of course, a new signing this summer. And Rangnick said that they didn't do enough during the summer to train. They didn't, I quote, they ignored the training plans that they were given during the summer, and as a result, they now have picked up injuries. Now, I mean, last season we chatted many times when they were playing in the Champions League that their squad seemed a little thin. And I think now, given that they're playing in the Europa League and they have to, it's a long way for them to the Europa League group stage. They're not embarrassing themselves like Freiburg did last year, right? On the path there. They did a really short process with Hacken in that second qualification round. They're now playing Universitat Craiova in the third round, but that's a lot of additional games. And the Europa League is a lot of additional games, and Leipzig will not throw away the Europa League the same way than a lot of teams last year did. And I think the Bundesliga teams in general are going to take that competition a lot more serious this year than they did in the previous year. But to take that competition more serious, you need a bigger squad, right? And Chris, that's how many times, I mean, we'll sound like a broken record. Have we said last year, they're great, but they have a squad of about 22 players, which is just not enough. Yeah,
and I'm surprised that they haven't the strength as much as they needed to. I know, obviously they're having troubles with Upamecano, who's not done his homework, which I think is a great thing for any manager or coach to say. But Rangnick's come out and said he needs at least 18 on the roster for the Bundesliga, the Pokal and the Europa League. I mean, I still don't even think that's enough. He seems to say that, you know, he's got 2 full professional squads, but right now he doesn't even have 1.5. I'd say right now he's probably just about got 1 that can mount a serious challenge on either one of those 3. Certainly not all. And as the man said himself, it's going to be difficult to dance at 3 weddings.
I love that quote.
Nicely done. Yeah, Chris, you mentioned Lookman saying that this is being dragged out. Do we know if we're any closer to that deal being completed?
Not at the moment. No, there's all sorts of unofficial rumblings. Like, you know, we know a couple of people that have got good connections at Everton who said, yeah, it's pretty much done, but I've not seen anything, certainly from my contacts over at Leipzig, that say they've reached an agreement with Everton. Everton have been quite resolute about how much they want for the player, because he is a good player and they are prepared to work with him. So the ball is in Leipzig's court. If they want to come in and pay the money that Everton want, then, you know, we've been assured that he will get his move. However, if they don't go in, if they try and hardball Everton and try and get him for as cheap as they can, then, you know, I don't think they will get him. However, everybody loves a bit of drama. If you go onto the Everton website at the moment, you can't get an Ademola Lookman shirt from official sources in the away strip, but you can in the home strip. So either somebody's made a mistake or the latest kit's not available for a player who's on the transfer list. You make your own decision on that price.
I don't know about you guys, but I always enjoyed it when you're on transfer deadline day. You would hear somebody works in the team shop and he started to print up Ronaldo on the back of Barcelona shirts or something like this. So it means it must be done. I hope it's a bit of that drama closer to the time. But Manu, we've seen RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg obviously exchange players in the past. Is there any possibility of that happening in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I reckon that there is still a chance that they could sign Amadou Haidara, who they rate really highly. I know there's also English clubs that are interested in him, but I think he makes a lot of sense. And they need a midfielder. They really do. They need someone to replace Naby Keita, because that's going to be a big hole left, right? And I think Haidara would be an excellent signing in that regard. But then there's also the rumors about Sebastian Rudy possibly heading over there, right, Chris? And I think we both agree that would be a fantastic signing as well. And another one is Tyler Adams. he plays in New York for the other Red Bull franchise. I guess that's the perfect term for it. And he's a really highly rated American player. He's 19 years old. And I mean, we've seen recently that Bundesliga teams have, really started to scout Major League Soccer for players. I mean, one of the biggest transfers in North America, Bayern just signed Alphonso Davies, right? So there's a lot of Bundesliga teams keeping an eye on that league as it's growing and producing their own talent. So there's rumors that Tyler Adams might be on his way over from RB New York to RB Leipzig. So I reckon they will sign at least another 2 or 3 central midfielders, because I think that's where the biggest weakness in the squad is at the moment. On top of Lookman, I'm still positive that deal gets done.
And that's one of Rangnick's main concerns at the moment. If you look at, spoken to German press, etc., that they are desperately trying to find a Naby Keita replacement because they know what they've lost, and that hole will need plugging in the central midfield area.
Yeah, stressful times over at RB Leipzig trying to get in new players, but I think you're right as well, Manu. I can only imagine they'll get a few other deals over the line before the end of the month. But guys, I got to put this question to both of you. I mentioned, do we see Dortmund mounting a bit of a challenge on the league this season? They were challenging Bayern. How well do we see RB Leipzig getting on this season? I mean, 2 years ago it was fantastic, wasn't it? Last year we've seen some fantastic moments from them, but it just seemed like they were, dancing at too many weddings.
Yeah, I mean, I know Manu and I probably think the same on this. Until RB Leipzig strengthen properly so they can fight on at least 2 accounts, I think maybe you can probably discount the Pokal. If they can challenge, unless they can make a decent challenge on the league and the European competition, they will fail on both unless they prioritise one, which I don't think they're prepared to do. So if they're going to fight for the league and they're going to fight for Europa League half and half, then I don't think they'll make Champions League qualification this coming season. I don't think they're good enough to get fourth with the squad they've got at the moment. And I think they're probably good enough to go as far as they did last season in the Europa League, which is a quarter-final.
Yeah, I think there's work to be done for sure. And I'm pretty sure they will put in the work. I think the money is there to spend. A lot of the money for the Keita deal isn't spent yet, right? So I think that, and Rangnick is a very good manager, and they might be doing the same than a lot of Bundesliga teams. There was a very good article in Kicker actually, on Thursday about how a lot of Bundesliga teams are currently sort of waiting for August 9th to pass and say, oh look, we still have for 2.5 weeks and we can just basically sign all the players that the Premier League teams need to get A, rid of, or B, didn't sign, because the value on transfers will drop significantly after August 9th, because all of a sudden your biggest financial competitor is out of the market, which means that teams around the world that still need to make money will have to drop their prices. So a lot of Bundesliga teams are waiting for that to happen, and that's only 4 days away. So I reckon that, and I actually think that there will be a lot of signings in the beginning of this week, and then a flurry of signings the moment the Premier League window closes. There will be a flurry of signings again. So I think RB Leipzig will have to strengthen. And if they do it the right way, then they will compete for a Champions League spot again. As for competing with Bayern, I think that the league will be very different this year, that you will see a lot of teams taking their matches against Bayern a lot more serious. So it will not just be Dortmund and Leipzig and Schalke. I reckon the teams like Leverkusen and Hoffenheim, and even some of the medium-sized teams, they will go to Bayern and look what Frankfurt have done with them at the final in the Pokal and say, look, this is a match that we can win. They are a team that is currently changing. There's a new, younger coach. We're not going to go to the Allianz Arena and try to lose with a small margin. We're going to go there and actually try to win. And I think as a collective effort, that will make the league a lot different and will change the league quite significantly, because all of a sudden it will be a much more open competition. Nagelsmann said yesterday the crowning achievement to leave Hoffenheim with would be a championship. I mean, when was the last time you had anyone say that from a medium-sized club in Germany? It's been forever.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think we talked about that a couple of seasons ago. You can't be a Hamburg, you can't be a HSV and go there and just hope you don't get pumped 8-0 and happy if you just get pumped 6-0. You need to go there and try and win. And when a couple of teams did that last season, they either were just pipped at the very depth, 1-0, 2-1, or they got a substantial result. And I think you're quite right. I think that game in the Olympiastadion, I think it shocked everybody in there just how easily Frankfurt took Bayern apart. I mean, Manu, we were sat with the Bayern fans and they were as shocked as we were. And that's why I just get the feeling that, I mean, we said it at the time, this was a monumental result that could signify the start of a shift in German football. And I've not had anything to change my mind over the summer to think that's going to be different.
Yeah, we could be sitting here 4 months from now and say, okay, well, here you go, Bayern is walking the league. Or we could also be sitting there and have 4 or 5 teams within a shout of a championship. And
that's what we want. That's what everyone wants.
That's what everyone wants. Yeah. And I think there's a good chance of it this year. I think really do, because I look up and down that list, and yes, there's a lot of question marks, but you look at, for example, what Bayer Leverkusen have not lost a single star player this year, right? And they have actually added players. I mean, they added that Brazilian kid that we wrote an article about, right? Chris Paulinho. They haven't lost any of their star players, and they have 1 more year of experience playing together. Julian Brandt is turning out to be quite a star, and he decided to stay there. So that will be a team challenging. I think Leipzig will get their business done. They will be challenging. We will be looking at a very different Dortmund side this year. Hoffenheim under Nagelsmann. Nagelsmann will do everything in his power to go out on a high. So they will be challenging. We look at some of the medium-sized teams. I mean, even further down the table, like Stuttgart, for example. Gladbach will be back up there. Frankfurt is doing some really interesting business. These are all teams that can take points of Bayern, and I think that in itself is going to be really, really exciting.
Oh, I'm excited. I just want the league to get going, eh? But let's talk about the champions then. A big bit of news this week is that Arturo Vidal has left them to join Barcelona. Chris, we're all a fan of Vidal on this podcast. We like that he could score some good goals. He had that creative spark to it, but he was very much an enforcer on the pitch, wasn't he? Somebody you didn't want to get into a fight with. I feel a little bit that, while Dortmund have brought in a bit of an enforcer, Bayern have lost theirs. And what exactly does that mean for them?
Well, I think you make a good point there, Bryce, because I don't cover Bayern that much. Manu normally will cover Bayern, as I will cover Schalke or Dortmund. But last season, I was lucky enough to cover them. I think it was 3 times, Manu, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And each of those 3 times, Arturo Vidal was my man of the match.
Yeah.
For those 3 occasions where I got to sit down and watch Bayern live and cover them and write a match report about them, head and shoulders above everybody else, Arturo Vidal was man of the match. I don't see anybody else who can do that, because as we've got in our notes for when we record this podcast, Tolisso Gozeka, they're too nice. They don't have that enforcer that they needed. And when Bayern were doing well in the Champions League, it was always Vidal who was getting his foot in, standing up, doing those team fouls, cynical little challenges that he used to get destroyed for sometimes. People go, oh, he gives a cynical foul away. Yeah, but he was there to break up, to enforce it, and he could also tip in with some really important goals and assists. I think that selling Vidal is a little bit of a mistake for Bayern, for me.
Yeah, and I thought we were going to go pro and con on this, but I actually agree. I think it's... I understand when people say that it appears Vidal's legs are gone, right? But I know that the choice was to either sell Thiago or Vidal. Thiago arrived with his legs never being healthy. And we saw... Remember the cup final? And when we're talking about the cup final. They were playing with James, Thiago, and who was the third? It was Rudy in midfield, right? Chris?
Yep.
Those 3. And they were too nice.
Yeah, because they were. Frankfurt bullied them into a 3-1.
They did. And the same in the Champions League. they outplayed Real Madrid, and the people are saying, well, but Vidal lost us the quarterfinal the year before. It's like, no, that's not true. Ancelotti lost that quarterfinal because he didn't take Vidal off in time, right? So that's not true either. And I look at the squad now, I see a lot of young, exciting talent on that Bayern squad, and I also see some players that are clearly getting on in age. I think that someone like Renato Sanchez maybe eventually can fill that hole. But when I look at Thiago, I know that Bayern tried to sell Thiago this summer, and no one bid because his knee is done and has been done for quite some time. So people are really concerned. Goretzka is a good player, but he's more of he's more of a nice schoolboy rather than, an enforcer. He's a great player, and I think Bayern fans will have a lot of joy with him over the years. But I think it's not that replacement that they needed. So I think sometimes you just need someone who bullies your opposition a bit. And I'm not sure that Vidal's, because someone wrote at me saying, well, his legs have been gone. Barcelona have one of the best medical departments in the world, and he passed his medical there with flying colors. So that doesn't indicate to me that his legs are gone.
No, not at all. A bit of an odd choice. Does this mean that potentially, we haven't really seen Bayern do too much business in the summer, apart from Alphonso Davies from the MLS. Manu, do we see them possibly trying to get somebody in to replace like Vidal, or where do you think Bayern are trying to strengthen at the moment?
Yeah, I don't see them do any business really unless someone leaves. There's been talk about United proposed some kind of trade deal, right, with Boateng going to United and Anthony Martial going the other way. And Hoeneß has been saying a lot of things. Not all of them I agree with, but I think with this one I actually thought I agree with him full well, that they decided not to sign Anthony Martial because they have all these young wingers that they're currently bringing in, right? Coman is healthy again. Gnabry is coming in. And then he said, well, we also signed Alphonso Davies for the first team coming January. So bringing in another guy in Martial wouldn't be fair to the players in the squad at the moment. There needs to be a balance. And I think in that department, phasing out Robben and Ribéry this season and replacing them with the young players coming in, that makes a lot of sense. And you don't want to do it too drastically. You don't want to have too many players for one position. In midfield, they believe in the midfielders that they have at the moment. So I don't think they're going to do very much there. Now, I could see that if Boateng goes for a lot of money, and there has been a lot of talk, a lot of clubs apparently interested, and I guess we'll get our big answer August 9th. I could see them going for another defender.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Interesting. Chris, there's been talks about obviously Boateng leaving, but and to Manchester United, but even rumours to him signing my club, Liverpool. Any possibility of that happening?
I don't think so. No, I mean these rumours go back some months. I think. Where are we now? August. I think June they first started to appear, and it all appeared because of a mistranslation over here in England from an article in Sport Bild that said Boateng. I'm paraphrasing here, but he hadn't made a decision about future, and he wanted to wait till after the World Cup. And if he got a good offer, he'd think about it. Now that somehow got translated into Jurgen Klopp. Identifies Boateng as a perfect partner from Liverpool, and I've not seen anything that gives some stern links back to any original article that says that. The only newspaper, call it that, appears in the UK isn't really a newspaper. And what I can say is probably no. My gut feeling is that no, he won't. Now, obviously, if he signs tomorrow, I just can't see it. Liverpool have said that all their summer business is done. Boateng doesn't fit the style of a Klopp player for me. So I'm going to say no, Bryce.
And also we're talking about players whose legs are gone. Boateng hasn't managed to play more than 20 Bundesliga games, I think, in the last 3 seasons.
Again, that's why he doesn't fit, Klopp's style. I mean, look at what he had. I don't want to turn into a Liverpool pod, but last night Liverpool played Napoli, and the centre backs were up running around. The wing backs were doing high presses, and this is after training twice that day. So I don't think Boateng fits Klopp's model at all.
Yeah, and think why Bayern are kind of desperate to sell him. It does feel a little bit like that. So,
well, we'll just have to see where he ends up, whether it's France or England or maybe somewhere else. But guys, let's talk about Mainz. They've sold another one of their players. He's come across the water over to England to join Newcastle. This is Yoshinori Muto, who played very well for Japan in the World Cup. But what type of player are they signing here, Manuel? He's obviously a striker, been in the Bundesliga for 3 years. But for anyone listening that may be a Newcastle fan, tell them exactly what they're getting.
Yeah, they're getting not an all-in-all striker. They're getting more of a deep-lying forward, bit of a mix of a playmaker and a striker. It's a player I really like. At the same time, I think he and Mainz were ready to move on. And Mutu wanted a move to England, has been a dream for a long time, and Mainz were quite happy to take the English money and invest it in other players, because I think what we're seeing at Mainz, and I think this is actually the thing that we want to maybe focus on a little bit more, is there's a really interesting shift in how Mainz are currently signing players and what kind of players they're signing, because they were a little bit of a boring team at times to watch last year. And
all the time. Yeah, okay, that's better.
I just try to be diplomatic here, Chris, but I think it's really fascinating when you look at the players that they're signing, have signed, and are about to sign. It's really interesting how they've used the money that they've got. I mean, they also sold Diallo to Borussia Dortmund, right? The centre back, and Suat Serdar, the midfielder, to Schalke. And they've been getting a lot of money for these transfers. But when you look at the players, and they brought in Jean-Philippe Mateta, I know Horst Stewart, he was really excited about this particular signing, but they also brought in Pierre Kunde from Atletico Madrid, Musa Niakata from Metz, and Philipp Mwene from Kaiserslautern, and then they promoted Ridley Baku, a central midfielder from their own youth team, and they're currently in the process of signing Spanish left back Aaron Caricol from Espanyol. He's 21. So some really all young players. I did a scouting article on Mateta. There will be one on Pierre Kunde soon as well. It's a very good signing. Thomas Farines, who watches both the League 1 and League 2, I asked him why he watches League 2. Guess it's his job as a scout. He's been over the moon over this signing. He says Mainz have picked up a jewel right there. So I think it's really interesting how they're completely changing the entire philosophy at this club, and they're basically selling the players that are worth something, but don't really seem to fit that new philosophy, right, Chris?
Yeah, and I think Sandro Schwarz will play maybe a different style of football than we saw last season. I mean, Mainz were, as you say, at times they were awful. And I'm hoping they can be much improved. And I think, yeah, it is key with the people they've brought in. Especially, with the top 3 players they've brought in, 2 from France and 1 from Spain. I think maybe we might see a different Mainz this season. Maybe one, if we cast our minds back, that played in the Europa League, which was an altogether more exciting side to play. And if I think back, I think it might be 2 or 3 years ago now, I went to see Mainz against Stuttgart at Mainz, and I thought they played very, very well, and their style of football was a lot better. So if they can get any way near back to that, I think it would be a lot better for them, because it's located in a nice part of Germany. It's just outside Frankfurt by an hour. the city of Mainz loves its football club. If they can pack out that stadium with some really good football, I think everyone will be in for a treat when they watch them.
And watch out for Vidal Baku, 20-year-old German youth international. There have been a lot of big offers this summer from English clubs that wanted to sign him, and yeah, he's decided to stay. He's one to watch. He's really one to watch. And 47 junior Bundesliga games he's played. He scored 14 goals and 7 assists. Very good player. He's already played for Mainz's second team in the Regionalliga Südwest, the 4th division, and will be basically a centerpiece for Mainz next year. So another youth talent coming through the ranks. So yeah, I'm really excited to see him, and it's really exciting that Mainz were able to hang on to this talent because yes, there were tons of clubs from the United Kingdom that looked at him and wanted to bring him over. And I think for him, it's probably also better to stay in Mainz to make that next step in development. I mean, right now we're seeing English players going the other way, right? To the Bundesliga to play there because they know that the style of football, A, fits the style, that English youth clubs want to play. And B, they pretty much guarantee playing time because the Bundesliga loves playing young players.
I think, go back to the original question regarding Mutu, and I'm in full agreement with you, Manu, that I think it's worked wonders for Mainz, that they've probably got just over half on top of what he was worth. I mean, what did he go for? Around about 11 million euros, probably worth, I'd say, just under half of that, really, without the Premier League. Should we call it a tax?
Yeah.
Premier League premium. If Mutu had gone elsewhere inside of Germany, you're probably looking at maybe 7 million euros at a push. So for them to get almost 11, I think is excellent. And have they lost anything? No, because as Manu's quite rightly said, I think the time has come for those, for Mutu's one of those players to make his way, and the paths are on a different setting now for both player and club, and I think they've done a fantastic deal by getting that much money for him.
Yes, I'll certainly be looking to improve on last season when they finished a lowly 14th. But guys, they survived. And now we need to talk about the teams that didn't and went down into Zwei Bundesliga, which started up this weekend once again. And the opening game seen Hamburg taking on Holstein Kiel. Holstein Kiel missed out narrowly last year on promotion, and then lost the relegation game. But Hamburg, it wasn't a good start. They've continued with their losing by losing 3-0 in their opening match on Friday night. Chris, a disastrous start.
You shouldn't laugh, but yeah, it's a horrendous start. I saw a great tweet the other day. I think it was from Johnny Welsh, who is all over Bundesliga too. And it went something like, Hamburg have dropped 25 places inside a year. Because didn't they win their initial game at the start of last season, which put them top of the Bundesliga?
They won the initial 3.
They won their initial 3 games. They are top of the Bundesliga, and now they're rock bottom, or they were rock bottom of Bundesliga 2. In fact, just looking at the rest of the scores, they are still rock bottom. Yeah. So, yeah, a terrible start for them. And it's only one game, isn't it? But if you counter that to the start that FC Köln had, away at Bochum, then that is really what you should have seen Hamburg do. I'll be massively interested to see what happens next week at Sandhausen, because if there's any sort of slip up there, we could be looking at something monumental happening again.
Yeah, Spiegel headline today: Hamburg lose again at the bottom of the league again, but will be promoted nonetheless. That was the Spiegel headline. I think there's too much talent. There's too much backing for them to drop down into Drei Liga. But I think a bad start will give everybody the heebie-jeebies. Remember, Stuttgart had that same problem 2 years ago. They had a horrible start at Bundesliga 2 Live. It can be difficult. I mean, Köln a bit more used to it. This is not a slant to Köln. It's just that they have spent more time in the second division than Hamburg ever, because I mean, this is the first time ever Hamburg had to deal with this. So Köln, I think, as a club, we're more prepared of what was going to happen, right? And therefore were able to make that transition a bit easier and didn't lose, and I wrote this in the Bundesliga 2 preview on fußballstadt.com, they didn't lose quite as many key players. And also players like Hector and Juan saying, look, we're going to stay here and we're going to repair the damage. I think that really helped going into that second division under a much different light than it was the case in Hamburg. Although Hamburg, of course, kept some key players as well. But I think that first match in Bundesliga 2, you go in there, right, and you say, okay, well, obviously this is a division down. This can't be too difficult, right? Can it? And then you realize, well, you're basically playing a club that almost got promoted last year in Holstein Kiel. It's a derby. There's a rivalry between the two cities. Kiel and everyone in this league will want to beat Hamburg. So you can't put your foot off the gas ever. And Hamburg did that. And I think it's a bit of a wake-up call for them. And you're quite right, Chris. What they're going to do with that will be, of course, now decisive. Are they going to take a lesson from it? How are they going to respond from this result next week when they play against Sandhausen? I mean, Sandhausen is going to be a real wake-up call for them. This is the smallest town, excluding Hoffenheim, because I think Hoffenheim are basically a Sinsheim-based club, right? Excluding Hoffenheim, they're the smallest club in the two first divisions in terms of population base. There's only 14,000 people in Sandhausen. The entire village will be there to watch Hamburg. And I think that's going to be quite a wake-up call for a lot of people in that state, in that club. And
they should have been well out of sight. I watched the first half of that game before I had some work to do. And they should have been 2 up inside of 15 minutes. But the problem they had that rolled over from last season is they just can't score still at the moment. Or in the first game, they just couldn't score. And that's the problem they had all last season. Really, at half-time, they should have been 2-0 up.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, Manuel, if we look at the table after this first game, yes, it's only one game, but that convincing victory, they're doing rather well considering they lost Marcus Anfang to Cologne over this summer. Do you think they could possibly go up this year?
No, I wrote this in my preview. I think. Yes, it doesn't look great for Hamburg, and this is, we all laugh, and rightly so, but I think they will go up at the end of the season, and Köln will too. I think they will both be promoted. And then that means that there really is all the other clubs are fighting for a promotion, relegation, playoff spot, and Kiel had a big turnover in the summer. You can make up for a turnover like that in one game, but over an entire season that becomes a lot more difficult. And you will see in Bundesliga 2, teams that win the league lose a lot more games than it is the case in the first division or any really division in any league in Europe, because it's a very balanced league. And I think Stuttgart lost 10 games in the year that they were down and still won the league, right? For around 64 points, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's just the reality of, even if you are a top club in that second division, you're still dropping points. You're still going to lose games. And I remember Fortuna Düsseldorf, for example, they went through a slump when I visited them in November, and then they won the league in the end last year, right? So this is just the life in the second division. That's why a lot of people watch it. And someone like Johnny Walsh has a podcast on it now, and has made a living out of reporting from the league because it's exciting. You don't know what result you're going to get week in and week out. But in the bottom line for me is that Hamburg and Köln are going to win this competition. I'm with Chris. I think that Köln are going to win it, and Hamburg will probably come in second.
Yeah, I think you'd probably not get great odds on those two if you were a betting man, would you? I think it's a bit of sensible betting there, if anything. But let's talk about Liga 2 and 1860. Do you think they'll get promotion this year after a whopping victory over the weekend?
No, they will not. I think, and this is the reason really why I put Liga 2 down there, is because it is maybe like Bundesliga 2, just a really fun league to watch at the moment. And the clubs that you have in the competition, and we alluded to that before the season started, right? There's a lot of history and tradition in this competition at the moment. And only 3 of the clubs in the league, and that's Energie Cottbus, newly promoted Energie Cottbus, by the way. Osnabrück and Karl Zeiss Jena actually managed to win their first 2 games. The remaining 17 teams either lost 1 or drew 1 of the first 2 games, and it makes a really nice reading on the table. But yeah, it's a very even competition, and like Bundesliga 2, I think there will be lots of ups and downs between the different clubs. And I think the other thing, and if you don't know this competition well, and you listen to this for the first time, you're like, Liga 3, third division in German football. The great thing about this competition is the stadiums. There's some really, really cool stadiums to visit. I mean, the Grünwalder Stadion, I think, should be number 1 on everyone's bucket list. But then there's Kaiserslautern's home ground as well. Cottbus have a fantastic stadium. Karl Zeiss Jena have the only stadium in Germany that still has a wooden stand. So that's a fantastic one on the bucket list too. Rostock is a great place to go watch football at. All these places have a lot of history. Preußen Münster, a founding member of the Bundesliga, and are now playing in the 3rd division. And Chris, when we did the logo for the Fußballstadt preview, you said, "Who's the team with the Albanian eagle?" Right?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
that's Preußen Münster. It's one of the most traditional clubs in German football. And Karlsruhe, that's another stadium that people should go. Fantastic atmosphere there. So I think really what I want to highlight, and when I'm going back, I will be back in September, and I will be doing some games. And one of the games that I'm really looking forward to, and we'll do a little bit of a preview when it happens, is Unterhaching against 1860, because that's the other Munich derby. And that's one of those matches that have a lot of history, because they used to face each other in the Bundesliga as well. So it's just a really interesting league like that. So if you look into getting into German football, you're a bit disillusioned with the Bundesliga. Both the 2nd and 3rd division offer some really good alternatives.
I've just looked up that badge, and yeah, Chris was right with his comment, wasn't he? And I've been looking up while you've been talking about all these different stadiums, and yeah, you've done a pretty good job at advertising the league and getting people to hopefully go and watch a few games. A lot of classic sides in there. Guys, I think that more or less does it for this week as we edge closer and closer to the Bundesliga starting and the Super Cup coming up. Chris, what have you got going on this week? Is there anything you'd like to point people in the direction of?
Well, it's unbelievably still, or unbelievably now, I should say, even though we're still in pre-season mode for the main clubs. The Super Cup hasn't been played yet. The Community Shield has only just been played in England today. The Champions League and Europa League are on their 3rd round games. So I'm covering Celtic. So if there's any Scottish football fans listening, I'm covering Celtic's Champions League game, and I'm also covering Leipzig's game. So I'll be doing the previews for those, and you can find those both on Footballstadt and footballgrad.com. And also we're pushing out our new preview image branding that is in line with the rest of UEFA's. So if you like it or dislike it, or you've got any opinions on it, just let us know on Twitter.
Very good. Always plenty going on with you, Chris. Manu, you're always the same. We talked this time last week about how you might potentially have the week off. I know that didn't happen.
Yeah, there's always something going on, isn't there? So yeah, Chris pointed out we have a lot of the post-Soviet teams that we cover on footballgrad.com. They have Champions League qualifiers this week, and then of course Europa League qualifiers. So Chris, myself, Andrew Flint, and Thomas Farines, we're covering all those games. They will be on footballgrad.com, fußballstadt.com. Really excited about the new images that Chris has produced. They look absolutely stunning. The first preview is already up on footballgrad.com, so you can see it there. And I think Chris also pushed out a tweet. So they look really great. Really excited to cover the upcoming season. And then of course reactionary to transfers. Axel Witsel profile is up. We're going to be reactionary to any deals that are going to be done, introduce the new signings in the Bundesliga, the Russian Premier League, the Ukrainian Premier League, and all the other leagues that we do, and the occasional profile. Yeah, so we're going to stay busy until the season finally kicks off, Bryce.
No, I think that was never in doubt, was it? Guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. We always appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can find any of us on Twitter. Please interact. Got any questions or anything, we will definitely do our best to answer. If you are a little bit short on football articles, then you can head over to the Football Grad Network at Football Grad, which is or at Football Grad Live. Sorry, there's always plenty on there, as Manu just mentioned. You can find me, Bryce Dunn, on Twitter at Bryce Dunn 11. And until the next week, when we're actually going to have a game to report, I suppose, on the top flights. Auf Wiedersehen.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen, dich abzuholen.
We can get anything delivered from furniture to toilet paper. And now, adult beverages with Drizzly. Drizzly lets you compare prices from local liquor stores on a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered right to your door in under 60 minutes. And right now, Drizzly's giving all new customers $5 off their first order. Just enter promo code EASY5 at checkout. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.
Looking for a new career? Welcome to Do HVAC Training Service Center in North Charleston. Enroll today in our comprehensive HVAC training hands-on field experience-based program, covering troubleshooting, maintenance, installation, and more on various HVAC systems and ductwork. We offer EPA and NAEP preparation and testing, along with various certifications. Enjoy payment options. Achieve certification in under 5 months. Enroll now for your new journey of skill development and career advancement. Log on to DEWHVACTrainingsc.com to inquire.